Hey, what's up? Welcome. You are listening to TC the G Radio, Season 4, Episode 10. I am TC the G, broadcasting directly from Tijuana, Baja California. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to have a great time. The title of today's episode, Authenticity. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry. Last night I was supposed to upload this episode, but con la lluvia and everything, I fell asleep. I fell asleep, so apenas me levanté like an hour ago, freaking early, because I went to sleep early. And here I am, guys. So I wanted to speak about authenticity because it's been a week full of scenarios where I have to, prove my authenticity, I guess you can say. As you guys, I told you guys last week, I have a new job, and things are going great at the new job. When I was first being interviewed for this job, for the trainer position, because I've been doing training for about 4 years now, training people with in sales, pretty much, mainly in sales. I'm a sales trainer. So when they were first interviewing me for the position. I'm sorry, guys. I just woke up. I'm still trying to put my thoughts together. So when I was being hired, when they interviewed me, the owner interviewed me. So he was asking me, the questions, leadership questions, right? And he asked me, like, what do I think about the job, or what happened at my old job? He asked me, right? And I told him, the boss, he didn't want to give me a raise, even though I was doing the work of 3 people, and it was a lot of work, So now I'm looking for a place where it's a fair pay, right? I'm gonna get paid fairly for what I'm working for, the work that I'm doing, right? Versus the other job where I was working a lot and not getting compensated what I should have been, right? I mean, I was getting compensated for the beginning because I didn't have so many roles. I started with the only one role. I was just a trainer. But, as time progressed, they gave me other titles. So that's fine. I don't mind, but I need to make, the money needs to make sense, right? And it wasn't at the end. So that's what I told the guy when he was interviewing me, It's just over there I was having a lot of work and I wasn't getting paid appropriately. So now I'm looking for a job where, I can get, paid what it's supposed to and be more chill, because it'll be less tasks than over there. And when I said that word chill, it was like, I should not have said that word, guys, because the guy just took it to the next level. He was like, "Oh, what do you mean chill? I don't want you to come in here with that mentality that it's chill. It's not chill. You're kind of like saying you're not here to chill." But I tried to explain to him. I told him what I meant by chill. I meant versus the other job. Not like I want to chill, but versus the other job, because the other job was giving me a lot, like a lot. So versus that, it would be chill just to have a regular position, And I don't mean that, you know what I mean? He kind of took it to the next level, thinking like I'm not going to do anything, It's like, that's not what I mean. It's just that at the other job, I was having a lot of tasks. Okay, anyway, so fast forward to on the 15th, my birthday. Let's see, was it the 15th? Yeah, it was the 15th or the 16th. No, it was the 16th. I'm sorry. The 16th. Okay, so the 16th, because on the 15th, I asked the company, I was like, because first they said they wanted to check me out, okay? Before they gave me like the position, they wanted to see me and how I work, right? So it was already 2 weeks on the 15th. So I told them, actually the 12th, right? Was the Friday, the end of the week. So I told them, what's up with the position? Because you guys told me you guys were going to check me out, but it's already been 2 weeks, So what's going to happen with that? How is it looking, I didn't want to bother them like too early on. I waited the whole 2 weeks before I even asked them, like, what's the outcome, your decision. And the owner, I had to interview with him again another time. And he said, that position was not guaranteed. I was like, yeah, of course, if they're putting me under trial for 2 weeks, of course it's not guaranteed. So I told him, yeah, I know, but I want to know, like if when I'm gonna get the position, if I, kind of like saying if I am. And then he was like, when I first interviewed you came across as very entitled, very cocky, and kind of like, he was bringing up, the other stuff that I told him that I wanted to chill, right? And I told him, you know what? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, at the end of the day. But the cockiness, maybe you read it that way, but it was just my confidence in the experience that I have in the position, because I already have 4 years doing training, So it's not cockiness. It was more like me being confident. Another thing that he told me that he asked me, right, when I told him about, I was leaving the other company, because he asked me, more reasons why. I told him, or the reason why, right? I elaborated more, and I told him, because also the owner it's a micromanager, right? He was micromanaging me. I was micromanaging everything, even though the work was getting done. He was micromanaging everything unnecessarily, right? And then the owner, I guess, he's an owner, so he kind of empathizes with the micromanagement thing. He was like, oh, but micromanagement is important, la 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 la. And I told him, yes, but micromanaging is not what drives results. It's people, it's their work ethic. I told him I come from sales, and in sales, people need to be very self-motivated. Because in sales is it's an up and down thing. Sometimes there's sales, sometimes there's not. So you have to be self-motivated not to get burned out, So in sales, there's not much like, oh, you should be, you need micromanagement in a way. No, sales is more like, that you have to take care, to be a good salesperson at least, right? You are supposed to be self-motivated. And that's what I told him, I come from sales. So for me, people need to be self-motivated, I am so self-motivated. So that's the way I manage people. Like, I expect them to be responsible in a way, and if they're not, of course you have to guide them into that path of responsibility, and self-motivation. But after that he was like, oh, anyway, he didn't really like that, right? The micromanagement thing. Oh, yes. Okay. And another thing he was mentioning during my interview, he was asking me, like, what would you do? Like, there was a change in the pay structure, right? For the employees. So he asked me, like, how would you break that down, or how would you explain that to the employees that the pay is going to go down? And I told him, well, it's just a matter of making sense to them that, the company, I guess, is not making enough money to or to make up for that. It's not breaking even. It doesn't make sense to pay that much, whatever the reason is. Most likely money. There's no other reason in a company besides money. So if they're not able to pay the employees what they were paying them before, then it must be for a reason. The company is not making it doesn't seem like it's not being, it doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense for the company at this point. So he was like, you can't put people against the company, and I told him, it's not that I'm putting the people against the company. It's just a fact. It's just a reality of things. When you're working for a company, we all understand that a company needs to make money. It's not about me putting them against the company. It's just, we all know that, it's just a reality of things. And he kept like saying, no, we need to sell it to them. And I told him, like, we need to sell what? It's a position. We're all here to work. That's pretty much what it comes down to. The people that are here, they know that they're here to work. I mean, what do we need to sell to them? In reality, people stay because they like your leadership, like the people that you have in leadership, that they have good benefits and things like that. It's not about, we're not trying to sell them a position, not in that way, verbiándolos. That's not how it goes, we all understand, again, that we're going to a job for a reason, We're all grown-ups in a way. That's what I was trying to tell him, we're all grown-ups. We all know that. We go to work to work. We don't need to get convinced to get a job. Like, if you need to get convinced to have a job, then you're probably a bum. Nobody needs to be convinced to sold a job. You're gonna go to an interview, you're gonna check out the spot, you're gonna check out the leadership, and if you fit in with the culture, if you like how they're treating you, if you like the benefits, if you like the position, that's when people stay. It's a factual thing. It's a mathematical thing. It's a fact thing. You're gonna dissect the situation, and then you're gonna make your evaluation whether it's good for you to stay, if it's good enough for you to stay. Nobody's gonna come and persuade you. Oh no, this and that and that. Maybe that might work for the beginning, but once they get in there and they see and they scope everything once they scope leadership, the vibe, the position, then they're really gonna make their decision. So I thought that was very interesting that the owners, the way they think, like. I guess to them, they kind of, it sounds cocky, going back to his comment, like it sounds cocky that I know what I'm talking about, in reality, so at the end of the day, like, of course, because of the experience, right? I've done the studying for my position, I've studied my position. I studied everything that goes with it. And more than anything, it's a leadership position. And, leadership comes natural to me, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it really does, and at the end of the day, he was like, at the end of the interview, he was like, they really, like, I guess the guys at the office, they really gave them good feedback, like I'm being positive, helpful, like, good energy at the office, so he got his 2 weeks of trying me out and he's getting good feedback. And he was like, oh, he just brought that back up. He's like, I just don't, the only thing that's bothering me is it's, like the interview stuff, like, oh, the chill and all that stuff, But they're really, they're saying that you're a good asset. And I see that you have leadership, that it's natural to you. That's the hardest thing to have is the leadership, We can't really just teach that to anybody. So, he kind of like, yeah, he let me in, So I took the position on and I'm there now, And to be honest with you guys, I was a little scared because this is the first, like, I worked but with smaller companies, this is like a big call center, like 40 people in the room, like 40 employees, before I was just managing just 8, so right now the company is like it's a bigger company. They're giving me more people to manage. And, but not too many because not too much more because they're giving me a section. But at the beginning of when I first started my training for this position, for the real position that I applied to, they were telling me that I was going to take care of like the whole floor, and I was like, oh my goodness, 40 people, that's crazy, how am I going to do that? Of course I'm up for the challenge, I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to get scared, even if I am scared, I have to push through because that's what's going to give me the experience, and maybe this is where I'm supposed to go now. Maybe, I'm ready for a bigger, making an impact in more people's lives, not just a few like at the other office, which I'm kind of like starting to see it that way, now it's time to step it up, right? Which is great. I'm really thankful and I feel blessed to be able to take on this role and that my experience is paying off, it really does pay off. When you put your mind to it and you're dedicated and passionate about what you're doing. And of course, everybody has their own passions and their own things that they like. So I would encourage everybody to find your purpose, find what you like and continue to develop those skills, because at the end of the day, it pays off. It pays off to do work that you love to do. That's where you find your money as well, We get money when we do things that when we find a job and we do it with passion, with love, with care, right? That's when the money starts coming in because we're giving the job that energy, that love, and it gives back to you, A lot of the times when we don't like our job, we're like struggling and we're hating the job and we're not giving it the proper energy. So it doesn't give us money because the energy we're giving it is not an abundant energy. It's an energy of lack, of fear, of, annoyance and all of that stuff, right? So, yeah, just do what you love, do what you love. And don't give up on that, because that's what's going to fulfill you the most. Thank you so much for tuning in to TC the G Radio. I hope you enjoyed this episode. What are your thoughts on authenticity? Let me know. Comment, like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay in the loop. Remember to tune in to TC the G Radio Wednesdays at 11 p.m. Tijuana time. Also connect with me on social media to get more of me and my music. My social media and contact information are on the video's description. Again, thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in and for allowing me to share this time with you. Take care. Saludos.